Odd, and I don't mean to judge because I know everyone has a different situation in terms of their connection and friendship, but like this really should be a wake-up call to go and touch some grass, make some real friends, because the situation is getting dire. According to an article going more in depth with friend.com, the pendant itself also listens to whatever you're doing as you move through the world, no tap required, and offers a running commentary on the interactions you have throughout your day. To perform that trick, the device has microphones that are always activated. Yes, for $129, you can have a pendant that is always listening to you and giving commentary on it. Like, what? Why would you want this? And I was like looking into what exactly it's saying, and it's not really anything substantive. In fact, most of the press about this AI talks about how a lot of times the AI is either mean to you or just straight up hates you. Like, that doesn't make no sense to me. Like, what? And let's not even get into this website. Like, on the website, they have a picture of this girl and showing like the potential questions the pendant asks you when you are, I guess, at a museum. And it's kind of giving like it's just asking you prompting questions to get you to think more. With it saying things like, so is this big oil painting living up to the hype? Want to grab food or keep exploring? Are these just funny sculptures then, or is there more to this exhibit? Like, these are just internal thoughts. These are thoughts that you should be having to yourself. this should be your internal dialogue. You should not be paying $120 to have something feed you your own internal dialogue. Like what? Like it's the wanna grab food or keep exploring. You get a notification on your phone that asks you that. Okay, you probably were already thinking that. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna pick up the pendant and speak into it, be like, yeah, I think I wanna go grab some food. Like, you look wild. And I feel like this is trying to be like the OG Bluetooth, because walk with me here. You remember when Bluetooth first got rolled out? Like when Bluetooth first started becoming popular, you would see people talking to themselves because you aren't used to seeing like Bluetooth headphones of like no wires and just things in people's ears and they're talking. So you think that people were crazy until Bluetooth became popular enough that now like when you see someone with wireless headphones or like something in their ears and they're talking to themselves, you're like, okay, they're not actually crazy, they're actually talking to another person. I think this is trying to be that, but it's kind of flopping because nothing is talking back to you. AI is talking back to you on your phone, and that's the main thing about the pendant. The pendant doesn't speak to you. It just sends you a push notification on your phone. So you're getting push notifications, you're speaking to your phone, and it's talking back to you like any other chat bot would. Like, I don't... And the reveal video itself is just so cringy. I'm sorry. The video ad just gives Black Mirror, because what do you mean you're pressing on your thing and you're making a comment and it's like affirming you? Like, first and foremost, no shade to the actors in this reveal trailer, but like, girl, the acting. I don't know if we're trying to give big millennial chug vibes or if the people who made this just happen to be the same people that wrote the dialogue in both Riverdale and Ginny and Georgia. Because what is this?
It's dank. I could eat one of these every day.
The burrito is dank and you can eat one of those every day. Okay, girl. And my main problem with the ad and why I think this is all just so kind of cryptic and preying on the loneliness epidemic really stems from this last scene in the trailer.
I just kind of like to come up here to be by myself. I've never brought anybody else. I mean, besides her.
She goes everywhere with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guess I must be doing something right, though.
I guess so. We'll see.
Like, this is what gives like the most Black Mirror to me. Like the concept of being like, I never brought anybody else up here, but I mean, her. Or anybody? Anybody? Your pendant? Your AI pendant? Like, that is just so dystopian to me. And the fact that like, I think that they were trying to give like flirty vibes, like, oh my God, will they, won't they vibes from like that last scene. But it really kind of gave like cryptic, like uncanny valley. Like, why is a real person, a real romantic love interest having to fight for your attention because you are so emotionally attached to this little AI pendant? Like, we have things like this, then we want to be shocked at why people are going through a loneliness epidemic and a AI-induced psychosis crisis. Like, this is the problem, people. And we're just having increasingly more stuff like this. Like, it's crazy. I don't know. Like, would you buy this? Like, is this intriguing to you? I know I've been coming on very hot. Is this not wild to y'all? Like, at least can we please like pump the brakes for a little bit and come together as a group and be like, all right, are we all cool with this before we move forward? I think the worst part about this, and I've kind of alluded to this earlier, is that like, for one, it's just odd. And two, I feel like the problem that this friend.com stuff is trying to fix is actually just making it worse. Because the concept of wearing like essentially like a live wire pendant AI that is listening and probably recording everything with relatively sketchy policies around privacy and data sharing is inherently antisocial, or I guess asocial. In an article actually reviewing the product, the author talks about her experience actually wearing the pendant out in public, and she describes it as an incredibly antisocial device to wear. People were never excited to see it around my neck. I certainly wouldn't approach my neighbor with a mic and try to assuage their anxiety by telling them the audio is just going to a chatbot. And I'll admit, I'm not the target audience. I imagine the people who want a friend is someone who's likely not a journalist, who may have more social occasions where they can sport an always listening pendant. I found out quickly that even at the most tech-minded gatherings, the thing was a complete taboo. And like, if you can't wear this kind of tech at like a tech gathering where that's like people's bread and butter, a group that is usually obsessed with all the latest tech, maybe that's telling us something. Like, if your goal is to isolate yourself further and like lower the chances of having actual social interaction, then this is the perfect product for you. Like, this is really less than a band-aid for the problem of being lonely, and is only going to make the situation more intolerable for everyone involved. Like, let's have these AI bots guide you to real social interactions, you know, bring you to the places where people actually are, so you can put those things away and have actual interactions with real people, and not have them incentivize you to keep them as your only friend. Like, the whole point of AI and the whole point of these devices is supposed to make your life easier, right? It's meant to improve your life, should help you either need them less or be on them less, because the whole point of artificial intelligence and streamline and augment things is so you don't have to be doing that stuff. It can be enjoying life and the fruits of life, which oftentimes are community. But it's clear based on public perception of the device and how the device actually works, these products are only trying to make themselves more useful, aka make you use them more, which means they want you to continue to be, say it with me, lonely. Yes. Like, why would you invest and market a physical chat if you didn't have intentions of making it a long-term thing? Meaning that you were banking on people still being lonely after using the chatbot so they use it more. I don't know this for certain, and this is all alleged, and this is just how I would predict things would go based on how other things have gone. Right now they're advertising it as like no subscription fee, you just buy the thing and you're able to use the thing. But based on what I've seen in Black Mirror and based on what I've seen in capitalism, I'd go so far to say within the first year or less, they're going to start rolling out subscription feeds to make your chatbot more personable. Maybe not just a friend bot, but maybe a romance bot, maybe a therapist bot for an extra cost, an extra tier on top of the regular friend bot. Watch this space, I don't know. But again, I have to keep repeating myself. There is something so weird about this. Like, we need to pump the brakes. Things are going too far, too fast in directions we don't need them to go. And my thing is, like, it's not just the friend AIs, because we're seeing these forms of essentially surveillance. Because, like, not to put on my tinfoil hat, but like, that's kind of what it is. If you have a device on you that's listening to you 24/7, that's keeping some sort of log of what it's hearing because it needs those memories to give you reasonable and appropriate feedback to what you're saying. It's recording and listening to you, and that brings up a whole slew of just like consent and privacy things. We've seen it with the Meta Ray-Ban glasses of people being recorded essentially without their consent, and I guess talking about the ethics of that, because does anyone have a right to privacy anymore? Is that even a thing? Like, if you are in a public space, are you allowed or allotted any form of privacy in the digital age? Because yes, when we go out in public, we do consent to be seen by the public, but that public historically has been maybe a couple hundred people, maybe 1,000 people a day, not the millions of potential people that could see you if you get caught up in the background or the subject in someone's TikTok. And then, did you know that they have like AI Furbies now? Yeah, Mothlins are a thing. First it was the Beanie Baby, then it was the Furby, then it was the iDog, the For Real Friends, and even more recently the Zuzu pets, you know, like the little things that you'd wind up and they can like run on the floor, or I guess they're motorized, they're like battery operated, they're like little hamsters or whatever critters that can go on the floor and kind of act like a real hamster or whatever critter. Like, they've upped that for the year 2025 because Mothlins are AI powered furry creatures, I think, and they're described as a calming presence and offer quiet reassurance. As an AI friend, they ease stress and bring comfort when it matters most. Enjoy the warmth and lifelike bond of a smart companion that uses emotional AI to respond to you, understand you, and grow with you. And my question is, how the hell does it do that? How the hell does it do that? What do you mean? And I hate to sound like a boomer that's just discovering the telephone for the first time, but like, what do you mean it's having a lifelike bond with you? What is emotional AI? How does it know when you're in distress? Because based on the videos and the advertisements, it just moves its neck around and you pet it and it's supposed to make you feel better because you're having some kind of connection, physical touch with something that's moving with you. They look kind of cute, but also I feel like this one also listens to you. So it's like, okay, surveillance when you're in distress, probably hearing some of your crazy thoughts that you're having when you're in distress, or hearing some of the arguments that would upset you, that would cause you to be in distress, where you need to pet your little AI Zuzu pet. I need to know more, but just hearing it right now, I don't like it. Like, I keep saying Zuzu pet because Zuzu pet's whole purpose were to be like the lifelike pets for the kids that weren't either allowed to have pets or were allergic to pets. So I get that it's meant to fill that same space of like an actual animal, except unlike a Zuzu pet, it only moves its head around. Like, it's given Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic that listens to you, and also, is like almost $500. Yeah, I saved that one for last because I was sure that would gag you. These little creatures, these little critters, almost $500. That crazy to me. Tuh. And I think that all of this is just going to show the levels in which we are willing to innovate, or honestly shoot ourselves in the foot, to help alleviate the pressures and the real emotional impact of the loneliness epidemic that we're all in. Except it really feels like we're doing everything in our power to make all these things so that we don't have to actually talk to real people. Because again, the solution to all this, and I know this is like really simplifying the whole issue, is to talk to people and to have friends and to build community. So instead of setting up spaces, changing cultural norms around socialization and our thoughts around friendship, we're instead selling each other expensive delusions or imitations of a authentic human experience that we all need to survive. Like, I don't know, we get closer and closer to Wally each day. I don't fuck with it, so I'm gonna go touch some grass.
This is what happens when 10 big companies and the government spend 5 years and $3 million on a game. It's called Driving in Tehran, and here's the rabbit hole that opened beneath it. Let's begin. It's 2005 in Iran, and news are breaking out about an upcoming major game release made by the traffic police. The trailers were being showcased on TV, featuring popular actors and characters, which built up massive hype around it. The main goal of the game was to teach traffic laws and promote safe driving. It was made by the traffic police after all, and they contracted a company called SRP to develop it. Sounds like a simple project, but the head of SRP, Dr. Sami, had much bigger ambitions. He wanted Iran and his company to enter the video game industry big, and he would do that by first making his own game engine, which took over 2 years and $2 million of taxpayer money to develop. Still, it wasn't enough, so he convinced 10 other companies to sponsor his game. He raised over $1 million this way and spent the next 3 years making the game. This was the official story, and it was looking good. 70 people spent 500,000 hours on the game and recreated one of the Tehran's 22 districts with advanced traffic AI and physics, totaling to over 10,000 lines of code. I'm sure they made millions. The game would eventually come out with a price tag of $5, which was a lot. Iran is a country where piracy is legal. People were used to buying pirated game discs for $1 or $2, and SRP knew this, so they implemented 2 layers of DRM into the game, with the first one being the government. Dr. Sami basically threatened people who would attempt to crack the game, saying they'd be dealing with the police, talking about morals and advocating for copyright law while hypocritically using unlicensed FIFA 98 soundtrack in the trailer. On top of that, the game would require an activation code linked to your computer's ID and only accessible through either telephone or their website, which wasn't even up at the time, and the phone line was consistently busy during the launch week. The game would eventually be cracked at some point, and here it is. The main menu offers us with 2 paths that lead to 5 different endings, so here's the story. This guy owns a taxi company, with his employees consisting of Sia and Hutan families. The Hutan family are the good guys. They get paid minimum wage to make this guy lots of money. The Sia family, however, is more ambitious. They feel like they're not compensated for years of hard work at the taxi company, so they decide to meet the owner in the countryside and discuss business. It's all going well until Sia decides to shamelessly plug one of the game's sponsors into the conversation, which is his Dark Piss soda company. The owner goes mad as a result, and Sia leaves with the goal of taking over the taxi company. The owner, along with Hutan, get in a car and chase after him. In the Hutan path, we're presented with a choice of 5 vehicles, all of which are made by the largest automobile manufacturing company in Iran. Ico is the biggest sponsor of this game, so much that they removed every other car. For example, there's a Mercedes in the trailer and game files that is nowhere to be found in the final release. Even the cover car used to be different. The Ico rabbit hole goes much deeper, but for now, let's start the game using this insult of an automobile. This is just the beginning. The gameplay speaks enough of the car handling. They crank the gravity all the way up, which in racing games is a lazy move to make the cars more stable, and even that is not enough in this game. But considering these cars are made by Ico, I'd say it's accurate. Anyways, you'll see advertisement billboards every 50 meters or so, and these are actually the sponsors of the game. What surprises me is that they somehow convinced the marketing teams of 10 big companies to pay tens of thousands of dollars for a virtual billboard. And this was in 2005, in Iran. They sold NFTs at a time when the average person didn't know what internet or video game means. We reach the end of the level after a minute of driving and move on to the next one. That's Sia. I'm guessing this was intended to be a chase scene, but ended up being something that is gonna chase me through my worst nightmares. We then reach the taxi company with the game transitioning into the taxi mode. Can you guess which button here starts the next level? Maybe the giant start button? Nope, that actually quits the game. Someone tried to prevent you from witnessing the horrors ahead, but I was unfortunate enough to find the real start button, so here we go. A cutscene doesn't play after the loading. Here it is from the game files. Hutan finds out that Sia and his family took all but one of the taxi vehicles, so instead of reporting them or going after them, he decides to keep working as the dumbass taxi driver that he is. The game basically turns into propaganda, telling you to earn money through legal means and obey traffic laws. But they mean it. In the taxi mode, you cannot go above the speed limit. If you crash the car, you lose money. If you break traffic laws, you get fined. But the most interesting thing is what happens when you run over pedestrians. The game crashes. It doesn't reset or show a game over menu, it simply quits. And before it does, it briefly shows up a message saying, you shouldn't play with people's lives. This was their idea of a video game. Obey the law, don't kill digital pixels, no fun allowed. They unironically made something that is best described as an anti-video game, and we're not even halfway through. To finish this level, you need to collect 200,000 Tomans through fairs, which at the time would have been worth $200, but right now it's worth 4. Each fare gives you 2,000 Tomans on average, so you need to pick up 100 passengers to progress. If that sounds boring, it gets a lot worse because each car crash costs you money. Not only the car somehow handles worse in the taxi mode, but the traffic cars simply ignore your existence and crash right into you. Advanced simulation. Okay, just keep an eye out for traffic and invisible objects, but that's not easy with the game's tiny field of view and render distance. It's like the original Driver that came 7 years before this game, and that game had sizable cities. Here, you get like 2 short streets of Tehran. That's less than 5% of the district that they promised to recreate. 1.5 million photos taken. Let's check that claim. Well, they did the bare minimum of turning those photos into textures, and then carelessly slapped them on 2D sprites with zero lighting. As a result, the game barely feels 3D. It's half-assed, and some alleyways are straight up skipped. Still, this is the only part of the game where you can see a small trace of effort, and I don't think it came from SRP, but rather another company who was closely tied to and funded by the police. They made all the animations for the game and probably borrowed parts of the city from their other projects. They even got to reference the game in one of their future animations. This animation contains unseen footage showcasing police cars that are absent in the final release. There are actually unused voice files related to police chatter, and they are hilariously awful since they didn't have voice actors. The biggest anomaly, however, is this Warcraft trailer in the movies folder. Alongside it, there are much better looking renders that make you question what went wrong. We'll get to that, but for now, we need to collect $4 to progress. But if you get fined a total of $12 instead, you get a bad ending. Not only you can randomly get fined, but the traffic law isn't exactly clear in the game, which you know was the whole point of it. You can buy back the Sia family after collecting $4. The ending cinematic is just a generic scene with text written on top of it, and the audio is completely messed up. In the bad ending, Sia will open up a new taxi company, which will bankrupt yours. Very sad. Anyways, we still have to play as Sia in the other story branch. So after taking over the taxi company, Sia gets a phone call. Apparently, the owner of the taxi company is in bad health. Sia has a sudden change of heart and rushes over to help him. Just don't ask how he got his hands on an ambulance or how the character models look. If you're too late, the owner dies, cry emoji. But otherwise, you'll need to pay 1 million Tomans in hospital fees since the owner doesn't have insurance. Funnily enough, 2 of this game's sponsors are insurance companies. They filled half the game with advertisements but forgot to mention them when they had the perfect opportunity. And guess how you're going to save up the money? Yeah, it's the same thing as before with 5 times the amount. If only there was a faster way, but they removed the bad ending from this path. Here's the cutscene from the game files. Not much is known about this ending other than Sia does something illegal and ends up being wanted by the police. But did you really think they were going to let you commit crimes in a video game? Even the worst rated scam game in history, Big Rigs, gave you more freedom. Hell, even a cancelled game whose sole purpose was to be as boring as possible ends up being more functioning and entertaining than this $3 million digital abomination. Worse yet, it has more propaganda and advertisement than a game made in North Korea. These were the 3 games you would think of when it comes to the worst racing games, but now, Driving in Tehran easily takes that title. This was just the main disc though. The second disc of this game was supposed to be about track racing. In most copies, however, this disc was blank and is believed to be lost media now. But according to forum posts, it was just a poorly modded version of Need for Speed 4 from '98. 5 years of development and all they did was steal another game. They even stole the mod. The national game engine that was supposedly built from the ground up was also a lie. The main executable of the game is a simple flash player and the rest are made using a basic open source engine. They just ripped off this vehicle physics demo and replaced the models with shitty Iranian cars. Except these cars aren't even Iranian, which gets us back to Ico. They contributed so much to the game that they have a dedicated movie accessible in the main menu. It's basically just a long advertisement showcasing their achievements, but let's look at them, shall we? They started out by making Hillman arrows in the 60s. Hillman, however, is based in Britain. Now in the 90s, they started manufacturing various models of Peugeot. Peugeot, however, is a French company. For 30 years they never made a car themselves, but in 2001 they introduced Samand, the national car. Their slogan, which can also be found in the game, was Samand the Iranian car. So was it? Samand takes most of its components from the same old Peugeots. They called it a new car, when in reality it was just a reskin of something they didn't even make themselves. Even to this date they're pulling the same shit, and it's not cheap. These 30-year-old jalopies go for over $9,000 new, which is roughly 3 years worth of average income if you somehow ignore the rapid inflation. And despite this, the company keeps losing money. How is that possible? The long answer can fill another video, but short answer, people steal money, because there's no way that any of those $3 million went towards developing the game. So where did it go? In Dr. Sammy's pockets, of course, but we need more proof. Where are SRP and Dr. Sammy today? Aside from forum discussions, here's every website that has an article about driving in Tehran. The first one is written by one of the biggest Iranian news publications, and it's entirely false. As usual, they claim the game was translated to 2 other languages and have won an international award in a summit that isn't about video games before the game was even released. There's also the archived version of SRP's website that remained up until 2008. They claim to have made another game, but I found no evidence of it anywhere else. Same goes for their other projects. It seems like their entire portfolio was built up on lies told by Dr. Sammy, who is even more mysterious. The only surviving information about him are from these 2 websites where he was briefly interviewed and made those bogus claims about the game and its copyright. But this is where the trail ends. Overall, this game was used to embezzle over $3 million from large corporations and the government. And to this date, no one knows anything about it. Don't look at me, this was just your average video laughing at bad games. But it fell way deeper. As it turns out, SRP's address is publicly available, so I thought to pay a visit. It went horribly. At first, the building seemed to be a medical clinic because it had a plaque with doctor names written on it. I took these photos and I was just about to have another look around until the door opened. A guy came outside and asked me if I was looking for someone. I told him I was looking for Mr. Sammy but must have gotten the wrong address. He then started asking why I took photos of the building and then called his brother to come down as well. After realizing he wasn't about to give up, I turned on my phone's background recorder. He's right. I started taking a video of the building as soon as I entered the alleyway, then came closer to take a photo of the plaque. And they knew all of these. They demanded ID and kept questioning me about the photos, which was weird. Even in Iran it is legal to take photos of public spaces, but they weren't really making sense. And nor was I due to panic, which is probably why they let me go so easily in the end, but not before forcing me to delete the photos I took, which I later recovered anyways. If you want full details, this whole encounter is on my second channel, but let's break down the important points. First, they had me on their CCTV the moment I entered a public alleyway. Why? Second, their response suggests that SRP is still operating in that building, but I didn't dare bring it up again. Third, why did they want my photos removed when literally anyone can check out the building from the outside? And finally, they had their names on a plaque besides the door, so I looked them up and yeah, one of them is registered as a general doctor and the other is a dentist. The reported addresses are outdated, but they used to be just a few buildings away from each other. I also tried calling SRP's phone number, but it was blocked, which usually only happens if you don't pay the phone bill. So why are a bunch of doctors so paranoid about a random dude taking photos of their building to the point of actively watching their cameras? Shouldn't they be busy with patients in the middle of a working day? Why open up a clinic in such an inaccessible and relatively uncrowded part of central Tehran? Why not update your address? And most importantly, what ties do they have to SRP? I don't know, this whole thing is not making any sense. It is clear though that something fishy is going on at SRP's address, but I'm not getting paid enough to look into this any further. There's just one more loose end left to address. This guy. Well, he used to be a very popular TV presenter and is still active to this date. I emailed him asking if he remembers anything, but got no response so far. This digital abomination can now be downloaded from the Internet Archive, but there's a high chance you won't be able to run it on modern systems. Good. In the end, Driving in Tehran managed to scam everyone while still managing to look good to the general public. And 17 years later, another game would follow in its footsteps.
Oh, by the way, I'm not talking this time. Mhm.
When I was younger, I skipped out on the Wii because the name was stupid. I was 7, so that explains the rationality behind it. And after all these years, looking back, I kinda regret my decision, missing out on classics like Hell's Kitchen, Game Party, Chicken Shoot, all these amazing releases that were getting cranked out month by month. But there was one company who put their nose to the grindstone, tearing cartilage, reaching bone, giving us a plethora of underworld gems that I'm ashamed I never got to play. Data Design Interactive. Today we're gonna look at some of their awesome games that I never got to experience, and to repent for my sins for not getting a Wii earlier on in life, I wanted to try fully emulating motion controls on a regular Xbox controller, really driving the fun home. I'll be accomplishing this mission behind the wheel of my monster truck, or excuse me, monster trucks with an X. We got 3 whole modes in single race, time trials, and challenge, 2 trucks to start, Doom and Flame, with plenty more unlockables we can sink our teeth into later down the line. Look at all these levels they give us too. There's so many. There's no way this could be misleading. And we're off, hightailing it through the dirt, going against our rivals, all having the same goal and reaching the end of this exhilarating race, becoming the greatest monster trucks with an X driver in the history of all trucks, being watched on by a stretched image of people plastered in the stands, cheering each and every turn, sipping on their sody pop, showered in bong resin, enjoying the show. What a universe Data Design Interactive has created for us gamers. Now, I'm sure that's how they wanted us to feel while we're racing. Unfortunately, that's not even close to how it really goes. It's more the player asking, did we put any thought into the game we are releasing to the public for money, sort of deal. If we revert back to the character selection screen, none of these trucks have differing stats. Even the unlockables, they're all the same. The fact not a single one has unique acceleration, armor, handling, whatever, makes any choice you could possibly decide from kinda pointless. As with the sheer idea of unlocking anything, why would any living soul want to sit there, wasting their time, grinding away, getting these oh so amazing golden dollar signs to line their pockets with Benjamins, releasing the other trucks from the dark depths, when they are all essentially the same, and in some cases, they are quite literally the same. If you take the legendary 4-wheeled demon, Flame, and look at another one you unlock called Midnight, it's the same exact truck with the color changed. The other starting one, Doom, has a similar situation with Crush. All they did was stick a couple extra bones on top, calling it something new. So already, you can see the levels of effort maxing we're dealing with here, and we haven't even gotten into the actual gameplay yet, which I would hope is self-explanatory. You drive on these sick-ass tracks with no minimap. It must have taken too much effort to stick one in. Cut any corners you can, as the life rulebook says. All you need to do is beat the other racers and get first place, a task that is much easier said than done thanks to how egregious the rubber banding is. Somehow, some way, if you happen to take lead, everyone will catch up, no problem. Or on the other hand, if you're lacking behind even slightly, you get to witness a generational gap in real time, making it impossible to catch up to anybody when playing on anything but easy mode. It was genuinely appalling how difficult it was to compete with the circus on medium. I tried for about 20 minutes, repeatedly losing, until I rage quit and went to easy mode where it was more reasonable. It wasn't fun, but at least I could start paving my way forward, unlocking the new tracks. You need to go down this list, winning in first place to open the next track. We have 16 in total. That isn't actually 16, it's fucking 4 that recycle. These 4 tracks under the sun icon are the only unique tracks in the game. You play them mirrored on the next set of 4, then you play all the same tracks again, but at nighttime. Finally, you're expected to go through that set for a 4th time, mirrored again. These mouth breathers attempted to pull off the greatest hoodwink of the decade, trying to bait you into thinking Monster Trucks has more content than it actually does when it comes to the vehicles and the tracks. If you want the cliff notes for this debacle, Monster Trucks Arenas is a game that has you drive what might as well be the same truck on tracks that have hardly any visual variety. As you go through the game, you repeat those said tracks multiple times, unlocking trucks that don't have individualized stats. Who is this for? You're in this endless Twilight Zone episode attempting to locate the fun dimension that can't be done. Everything is the same. All I wanted to do was grind it up, driving my monster trucks with an X, becoming the greatest racer the world has ever seen, and this is the treatment I get for it. So maybe in the sequel, things will get better. Yeah, Monster Trucks Arenas actually does have a sequel called Monster Trucks Off-Road. If you look at the case, right, there's no way this could be the same exact game. Hard-working, blue-collared Sigma males like Data Design Interactive would never do such a thing. Off-Road has the same exact trucks because they knew the fans wanted them back. That's why each of them were copy-pasted over. As with the unlocking system, the amount it takes to unlock each truck, the menus, the game modes, fans wanted it all back. Data Design even listened to fan criticism. They got rid of you needing to play the same 4 tracks 4 times and dropped it down to 3. This game is the 07 Jericho return in gaming form. Nothing but Chuck E. Cheese birthday party surprises all round. Look, they even added a mini-map. Them adding it definitely isn't sleight of hand to make it look like a different game at a glance. Fans wanted it, fans got it. For fuck's sake, dude, how many screws need to be loose upstairs for you to release this and call it a sequel? You're still driving around with awful physics where you can barely control yourself half the time. It might actually be worse since these tracks have more bumps and jumps on them. You're dealing with this in the same trucks you were using before, unlocking them in the same order. The only actual new piece of content is the 4 tracks you were given. Oh boy, the ground is different. That makes up for everything. You want to know the funniest thing though? Monster Trucks Off-Road isn't even a sequel. I initially thought it was because it released after Arenas on the Wii. Apparently it released back in 2005 on the PS2 and they brought it over here 3 years later with a different name. There it was called Monster Trucks Extreme Off-Road. So let me correct myself from earlier. How many screws do you need to have loose upstairs for you to call Monster Trucks Arenas a sequel to this? But either way you look at it, it's the same exact game. Better yet, there's another game, simply called Off-Road Extreme, that has track textures that are clearly reused from Monster Trucks Off-Road, along with the physics, unlock system, gameplay, and everything else. All they did to make that was swap the vehicle models and spice it up a bit more by adding a few lies under the title. It says ATV, karts, quads, motocs, buggies, and Baja. If you take that at face value, there are no ATVs, quads, or motorcycles at all in this game. Buggies is spelt wrong. I just don't get it. Why did they lie about the content in the game? Especially when it's something this stupid. Were they assuming someone would pick the case up and just not want it anymore if Motox wasn't on the front? And yes, pedants, I know it's supposed to mean motocross. Regardless, it doesn't excuse the lying. I'm being torn in 2 different directions. Is the lying worse? Or the fact we've only looked at 3 games and the content recycle hustling is this bad? All 3 of them are basically the same thing, but they have sorcery in between to make pretend they aren't. It's incredible. There may be people out in the galaxy who would still attempt justifying this sociopathic behavior after seeing all that by saying, well, maybe it's part of the Monster Trucks universe. Data Design wanted to create a multi-layered MCU-adjacent situation for their automobiles, connecting those 3 games together. Well, if that's the case, might as well add a 4th one in here, branching out into the fabled quad zone, and I just can't believe the Kawasaki name is all over this thing. Who got their sausage torqued to allow for this to happen? You did a brand deal with these people. Back in these times, companies must have just not cared or really looked at what they were being endorsed by when it comes to video games. It just blows my mind a company willingly worked with these guys. When it comes to the second to none features we are given with this one, the overall amount of vehicles was reduced to only 4. Not sure why. I guess they figured, why reskin 10 vehicles when we only need to do a couple? Chop down on that elbow grease. Data Design also pulled out a new rabbit from the hat when trying to make it look like there's a lot of tracks. There's no nighttime slop here, people. We made 6 original tracks per world until you unlock more, realizing they make you play the same ones twice in each category. The massive overhaul excuse they use to have you repeat the tracks again is scattering a little bit of debris around the place. Stick a couple stumps and branches on the ground, that's different enough, right? Why not just make a new track? Is it really that hefty of a challenge? What's even more pathetic is how the 3 tracks per world reuse layouts between each other. As I was playing through the beach tracks, I started noticing the first half of the track's layout is reused in all of them. All they did was slightly open the track more, adding a few new bends as you go down the line. So even when they're making the original tracks, it's still copy-pasting cutting corners. This could have been going down in the other games we talked about and I just didn't realize it, but here it's painstakingly obvious. Whoever's ballpark Frank got slobbered on must have had a very, very good time with it. We didn't just get one Kawasaki brand deal game, we got 3. Quad bikes, jet ski, and snowmobile. No motorcycle though, I wonder why. They all follow suit with quad bikes, attempting the same bait with the amount of tracks, racing your otherworldly opposition that cheat up the wazoo if you play on anything but easy mode, sharing controls, physics, unlock systems, and menus with every game we've talked about so far, only having minuscule differences like how you can jump in quad bikes. Regardless of that though, all 6 of these racing titles are essentially the same game. Your only tangible difference is the visual of what you are driving. And we could go on and on about these racers. It doesn't stop there. If you look at Rig Racer 2, that isn't a sequel by the way, Rig Racer 1 does not exist, how could you be so dense as a company to make a mistake like this? Of course, it has the same menu every other game has, as with the unlocking system, but it's a game that has vehicles with stats, so there's one positive. We got another one where you can barely play the game at some points. Look at this shit. We start the race, drive for about 5 seconds, and all the trucks are dogpiling on top of each other, making it impossible to go around this turn. I literally could not beat this track. I had to go back to the first track, keep grinding it to unlock one of the better trucks that had a higher top speed to give me better chances at conquering this corner, since it's not guaranteed regardless of which one you choose. I love when my games are like slot machines where I gamble my time away and get nothing in return. Rig Racers 2 is another example of the never-ending entries of reskinned car games. The games may not seem connected, but when you play them, that familiarity starts oozing out of every orifice a big rig can have. So after dealing with 7 racing titles that might as well be the same game, you need to branch out while still satiating that automobile fetish, of course. Everyone wants to plug themselves up with a tailpipe, and that's what London Taxi Rush Hour will help us do. A game, before you even play it, you already know what it's going to be ripping off. Believe it or not, the menus are menus you've already seen before. We get 3 modes in time games, money games, and perfect day. Choose how long you want to play for. Obviously going with the shortest amount of time. Our only playable character is Andy, and we also have that same unlocking system we've come to know and love. Upon selecting our one brave soul, we're plopped into Westminster, driving around, picking up random people, delivering them to wherever the arrow is pointing towards. If you don't know what game I was referring to when I said London Taxi is ripping off another game, it's Crazy Taxi. The loop is copy and pasted from that, except it's missing the fun and even the visual variety. You better get used to viewing the sights of these block-ass smoothed out streets, because this is all you're ever gonna see. No joke, London Taxi has one level where you do the same thing over and over again. Drive person here, drive person there, drive person everywhere, while ensuring you don't make them angry by crashing into things and also keeping your car clean by getting cleaning cubes spinning around on the sidewalk. If you don't do this, the Westminster people won't tip you, and you need that score to go up. Otherwise, you get your nothing. Data design tossed in a curveball with the unlocks. The money from dropping people off are essentially just points. They don't go towards unlocking anything. Instead, you need to look around for these bulldog coins, scraping up enough of them to unlock yourself a new character that are all the same car, just a different color. A worthy unlock for the ages. As I was playing this game more and more, I was having a blast. Who wouldn't enjoy this? But I felt like I recognized this map from another game. Oh, that's right. My favorite game. British classic motor racing, where they took 3 separate sections of the London Taxi map and made it half the tracks in that game. Alright, fuck the cars. No more cars. Rather than looking at more of these, we need to see what Hamster Heroes is all about. If you go old school, reading the back of the case, right under these oddly familiar screenshots, it says, "The evil Hamster X has trapped the Hamster Heroes in his secret lab. 15 perplexing puzzle levels stand in their way of freedom. Can you complete them all and release Sergeant Fluff, Katana, and Super Ham from the clutches of Hamster X?" Interesting how the guy supposedly wants these other hamsters dead, but he's a playable character working alongside them to escape his own prison. Maybe it's to overshadow his unoriginality of puzzle creation? If it wasn't abundantly clear, the Lords of Gaming gave us a Super Monkey Ball clone, stacking on to the idea of how Data Design Interactive either do what they can to cut corners and not put effort in, or refuse to come up with anything on their own. In the case of Hamster Heroes, the mentality is finding an idea that looks easy to copy, make it, and deliver it to the public for money. Quality, passion, and fun go right out the window. For them, and for me. As I said in the beginning, I wanted to see how emulating motion controls would go for me. Up to this point, it was fine. I could bust a few turns in the racing games, but in Hamster Heroes, I kept moving at ungodly speeds to the point I couldn't even control it. I can't tell if it's the game or the emulated controls. However, I do have evidence to believe it's the game that we'll get to later, but trying to finish the first 2 to 3 levels was almost impossible. No matter what I did, life could not go on. So I rage quit and put in the new hot game series you may or may not have heard of, Mythmakers Orbs of Doom. Dude, no way, the same menu system? Dude, no way, another Monkey Ball clone? Dude, no way, it controls like shit? At the very least, the levels are different. None of the ones I played looked like they were ripped right from Hamster Heroes, so that's something. Never in my life would I think praising a game for not recycling content would be a real moment. Here we are. All of these probably new levels we are given also have unbelievably in-depth descriptions to let you know what you're getting in on. For example, this one says Easterville, turntable, full stop. Whether a player had a good time with either of these games is up for debate. I think you could just buy the objectively better Super Monkey Ball and blow both of them out of the water and never look in their direction again. But we do live in a world where people like to be peed on or buy farts contained in mason jars, so what do I know? Aside from how amazing the characters in Mythmakers are, the second you see the selection screen, you know they're instant classics. They need another game. And luckily, Data Design gave us that other game a year earlier. Mythmakers Super Kart GP. That's right, you can only escape cars for so long. We've returned to what the prophecies foretold all those eons ago, only because it needs to be mentioned for how terribly designed it is. All comes off as normal at first for Data Design standards, other than how Trixie has both of the stats we're given fully maxed out. What is this play? What's the point of trying anyone else if the first character's stats are cranked up like this? Whatever, that's not even the biggest problem. The track design is where the real entertainment rears its head. It appears they had the brilliant idea of not letting you brake or slow down whatsoever if you're being boosted, making any and all boost pads bring you to Bone Town if you attempt utilizing them. Look at this. We have one leading right off the edge. If you touch it, you're gonna skyrocket into the blue paint bucket or crash into a tree. This one sends you right into a wall shortly before the finish line, making you freak out and fly all over the place. We got another one sending you right off a cliff almost. It's ridiculous. And even if they don't send you to your doom or outright ruin the race for you, the idea of not being able to brake period until the boost is completely gone is genuinely one of the most ape-brained things I've ever heard. With the amount of hairpin turns they tried putting on these tracks, there's no point to ever use them. Boosts hurt you far more than they help. And assuming you're also keeping in mind how the AI behaved way back in Monster Trucks Arenas, that whole sickening rubber banding, that exists in Mythmakers GP as well, alongside every other problem each of these racing games have. Data Design's passive ability allows you to keep going down their line of games, showing new problems with all the older ones still pertaining. That being laziness, reusing assets, cutting corners, bad physics, lies, you name it. And yeah, this video may seem all over the place, but this is how it happens with Data Design Interactive. It never ends. Like, if you were to ask the question, is Mythmakers Super Kart GP a reskin of a different game? Yeah, it is. Mythmaker Supercart has the entirety of its gameplay loop, physics, items you pick up, sound effects, all taken from Action Girls Racing. It's inherently the same game that released a year earlier in 2005. All they did was make a couple new tracks, probably, and reskin the vehicle and item models. So if you want to build another timeline again, like we did with the Monster Truck saga, these knuckleheads released one game first, Action Girls Racing. They design new characters and textures to reskin that game, then they take those characters and textures from Mythmaker Supercart GP to make Orbs of Doom that is ripping off Super Monkey Ball, and best of all, they just reskinned Hamster Heroes to make the Mythmaker's Super Monkey Ball clone. I feel like I'm going insane. The DDU, the data design universe, has so many rabbit holes of recycling content, it's like watching a wrestling channel on YouTube. The laziness is fucking incredible. You can play one game and find out it's ripping off a franchise using recycled content that's from another game recycling content. I don't know whether to be impressed with the lengths they go to recycle or be disgusted how this is a real thing that a company actually did, making me want to step back and just wonder, will I accidentally fall into a rabbit hole by trying one of their games that doesn't appear to have any attachments to it? It's called Battle Rage Mech Conflict. I looked through their entire catalog and I didn't find anything that looked similar to this, so maybe it can be a step in the right direction. Battle Rage immediately flashbangs you with an opening story, setting up the scenario you're going to be dealing with. Believe it or not, this is something worth mentioning for a data design game. Typically, we're only left with our guesses and assumptions when it comes to the universe we're stomaching. Not only this, they added even more to the stunners, giving you individualized characters, having unique weapons between each other. Is that real thought I see? They even let us choose where we want to put points between health, offense, defense, and shield. This obviously isn't gaming's equivalent to the moon landing, but it's something. It's actual substance after all this time. When you actually start playing the game, you're stuck in a 1v1 scuffle going against a mentally stunted stump robot. I say this because it walked off the cliff like twice during our battle and struggled to figure out where it was going half the time as I blasted away at it with my shotgun. While all this was happening, I also unknowingly partook in a secret challenge of can you beat Battle Rage Mech Conflict without jumping, thanks to me being hindered with my control. No matter what tactics I tried, I could not get the moving a nunchuck controller upwards motion to function, so no jumping for me. It's not like it matters anyways. The AI is so brain dead and more than easy to exploit. If you do this maneuver of finding one spot to stand in, force your opponent to come to you, you stand there, shoot them, Zarya bubble, shoot them, kill them. Repeat that 5 times per level, and you win. The only battle that was remotely close to challenging was the final boss, mainly because I couldn't jump in a level that was centered around verticality. I was inevitable though. My maneuver of shooting the floor next to me with a rocket launcher propelled me to victory. I even got my badge of honor. Congratulations, you have won the Battle Rage tournament and earned your freedom. The awareness on this one is impeccable, but at a simple glance, you can tell Battle Rage is the closest thing up to this point that you could call a game. It's not good by any means. Surely you could find other mech-style titles on the Wii or other consoles that would hold attention for much longer and be more enjoyable overall. This one just has enough going on to where you could see a down bad family somewhere in the world saying this is fun if they've never played another game. Am I gonna sit there 100%ing the game, going down the line one by one, unlocking all the characters? Absolutely not. I need an hourly wage to do that. Beating this game once is enough for me. Mech Conflict may win the contrast bias battle. When you're comparing it to the entire landscape of gaming, I'm good, no thanks. I'll still give it some credit though. Sure, they were probably ripping off another game or franchise. At least they didn't make this using recycled assets or reuse Mech Conflict's assets to make another game. There's an inkling of humanity with this one. With all that said, I'm still left with one question. I was taking a look at the advertisements. Apparently, Battle Rage Mech Conflicts was going to have the ability to switch to a 3D mode, requiring you to wear actual 3D glasses while playing. There's footage of it. It's real, but that feature doesn't exist in the menus. Did they get rid of it? Maybe it required too much effort. Normally, you'd ask, why are they making false advertisements about their game? But at this point, I'm just happy I found something that isn't copy-pasted. That's how low the bar is. It's a huge moment for DDU fans everywhere. So let's take a look at another all-original one-and-done gem stuck into the DDU in the year 2005. Ninja Man. Surely this wasn't copy-pasted multiple times after its release? Level 1. Training Dojo. This level releases us into a world of cookies and candy, learning the pillars of Ninja Man, jumping across platforms, slicing up tough enemies that stand still, and throw shurikens at targets. After you complete the tutorial, we enter the Lollipop Forest, where the real game begins. Our goal is to collect 8 of these batteries, whatever they're supposed to be, to open our teleporter to the next level. There's an arrow in the bottom corner directing our way to them. Usually we're expected to do a little bit of parkouring to reach said batteries, and that's really all you do. You don't need to do anything else. You can skip every enemy in the entire game if you really wanted to. It's not like anyone would want to fight the cake monsters anyways. Whenever you try to melee them, Ninja Man has a weird bug, making it so you can't attack if you're standing too close. So you need to attack, then walk forward, timing the animation right to deal damage. Better yet, when you spelunk your way around that bug, your attacks have a chance to go straight through your enemies anyways. So the Galaxy Brain play is just not fighting them to save yourself from a migraine and appalling levels of confusion. As long as you hyperfixate on the 8 batteries, you are always winner. All you miss out on by not killing anything are those precious points. Gotta grind that leaderboard. My lord, man. They seriously should have just made all the other Miis beat you up in the town square if you had Ninja Man in your catalog. I can be as satirically optimistic as I want, but I can't hide how sad Ninja Man is. Every level outside of the tutorial may appear to be different visually. In reality, they aren't. It's all the same. Follow the arrow, ignore all enemies, get your batteries, deal with stiff platforming, and jumps that choose when they want to register or not. Enter your teleporter, finishing your 3 levels. No joke, 3 levels that we don't even get a congratulations for. Upon completion, when you win, it just goes right back to the main menu. You get nothing. You know, I'm really shocked they only went with 3. Surely you could have turned them around, having you play the level backwards. Maybe you'd be able to change the sky to a different color. Then this 3 could be turned into 9. No, this was 2005. It was still early in the DDU. Those genius moves weren't coming in until around 06, 07. Or it could have just been too much work, needing to create new respawn points, switching colors around. No one's gonna do all that for one game. Instead, they're gonna break out the pencil, mock up some new sketches to take the glory that we've all seen with Ninja Man and build 2 more games that are fucking identical. The villagers thought Ninja Man was its own standalone title in the DDU. The villagers were wrong. They were all spayed for making that assumption. We got Rock and Roll Adventures and Anubis 2, where just like Rig Racers, there is no Anubis 1, only Anubis 2, that both follow a similar suit to Ninja Man. The gameplay is exactly the same bug with the melee attack, same goal of collecting 8 of an item. In Rock and Roll Adventures, it's a CD, and in Anubis 2, it's a pyramid. Unexpectedly, the levels for each of them appeared to be original, aside from the tutorial level in Anubis 2, that is literally a reskinned version of the one from Ninja Man. This game also has bonus stages. I got my floors mopped in about 2 seconds when I tried one. Overall though, these might as well all be the same game. If you played and beat Ninja Man, you've beaten Rock and Roll Adventures and Anubis 2 without even knowing it. It's seriously hard for me to believe after playing 17 games, only one of them did not have reused assets or have their assets reused to make something else. 99% of Data Design's games were like an electronic utter. You release it and see how much you can milk it. This strategy was also used by 2 other infamous European game companies you've most likely heard of, Phoenix Games and Blast Entertainment. Their goal was to make games as fast and as cheap as possible, so it makes you wonder, what if 2 of the most powerful, dominant forces in the gaming industry teamed up to make a game? Well, just like the ultimate tag teams of Undertaker and Kane, Jesus and Moses, whoever, Blast Entertainment and Data Design Interactive assembled the 2-headed dragon of the gaming industry to give society Casper and the Ghostly Trio. And I guarantee you know where this is going. That's right, we have another Ninja Man clone. The only real difference is how we only need to collect 4 items per level instead of 8. What a punch to the gut that is. Also, we don't have a melee attack this time around. We're given a ball of light that explodes. I don't know what that is. I don't know anything anymore, to be frank. Did Blast just look at Ninja Bread Man and go, whoa, we need to get in on some of that? How are they doing this? That may sound like hyperbole, but if you consider how one of the other games Data Design and Blast both have their name on, American Tail, that is stylized like almost every other Blast Entertainment game, with a few DDU specials tossed in there, like how on the first level, we're playing a Super Monkey Ball minigame that controls horrifically. This was my evidence I mentioned earlier when I said I didn't know if it was the emulated motion controls or the game itself with Hamster Heroes. I'm playing American Tail on PS2, no motion controls, and you move so fast it's borderline unplayable. Next, I'm sitting on the back of Henry grabbing pieces of Cinnamon Toast Crunch to try staying afloat above water that forgets it's supposed to be moving, while the entire game is struggling to function at a stable frame rate. What else is in the pot of tricks for a movie that shouldn't have a game made about it? Why, of course, run around the streets looking for cheese, parachute using a wife beater to get stars, run through the sewers chasing a bug, recycle that same level but force us to escape a cat driving a shoe-ass vehicle. Finally, use whatever this ungodly creation is to scare cats, wheeling our way to the end. Congratulations, Fievel has saved New York City from the cats and been reunited with his family. Maybe finally they can settle down and enjoy their new life in America. I've never once been envious of an anthropomorphic mouse, but that whole enjoy thing they're talking about, boy, do I want a piece of that. No matter the game I tried, entertainment is unattainable. I didn't cherry pick these games. My ass went on Giant Bomb, looked down the list, started choosing random ones, seeing where the road would take me, and this is how it went. Rabbit hole after rabbit hole, being flabbergasted with the lengths these guys took to be lazy in game development. Nothing but shock and horror, concocting the essence of Halloween through the guise of Wii games. Who needs a Jackson or a Frederick Cougar when you have Data Design Interactive's catalog? After wasting my time with all of these games, I had to go on their website just to see what they had to say for themselves. What fine gent used their -100 speech to give us blocks of text? Under the gallery tab, it says, extreme anxiety. Ever had the feeling there was something you should know, but you don't know what it is? This may cause you to suffer from anxiety attacks of the extreme kind. For instance, not knowing about the great games we have developed. We are here to help you out of your misery by revealing some of the games developed by Data Design Interactive. And they had the audacity to use pictures of Rock and Roll Adventures, Ninja Bread Man, Rig Racers 2, Myth Makers. Like, would any of these actually stop someone's anxiety or make it worse? Moving over to the technical tab, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. At Data Design Interactive, we have a no-nonsense approach to the development of games. We offer what the market demands and adjust our hardware, software, and skill base to accommodate that demand. Bullshit. Our game-oriented development system, or GODS, has made it possible to develop great games on a budget and to high quality. GODS allows faster, more efficient, and more reliable games development by standardizing common routines that are then stored within the GODS library system. Coding that would have taken days can now be done in minutes as our GODS system rapidly handles all aspects of game coding, including 3D objects and special effects, sprites and high-quality 24-bit maps, sound effects, music, and intro sequences. Artists are able to add, test, and change all graphics without affecting programmers. This allows programmers to continue working on and refining new game code while artists add and refine graphics. Artists are also able to place scenes and characters directly from their 3D rendering package into game code without any technical or time-consuming conversion processes. In this way, the project will be able to progress quickly and efficiently to the final product. That was a little bit of cosplaying like James Somerton reading that entire thing, but this definitely explains a lot of the situations we dealt with, and also to me kind of sounds a lot like early day AI generated game development. I'm sure if you're a corporate suit, you'd be creaming in your pants right now, but if you have any bit of humanity and look at video games as an art form, whether that is through how they are designed mechanically or visually, where's the passion or intrigue of creating something, looking back on the product being happy about what you've made? It does not exist with these guys. On their site, Data Design even gives some insight on their portfolio so you can get a scoop behind the scenes, and it seems they were struggling to find reasons why their games would sell. If you look under the the blowing smoke up your ass segment, it says, "Why this will sell. A classic platform game with power-ups," which is a lie. Ninja Bread Man doesn't have power-ups. Double jumps, moving platforms, and deadly enemies. Now, I'm sure these are earlier documents mocking some stuff up to fill space. At least I'd hope they are. If we're putting double jumps and moving platforms in our Why This Will Sell section, we have some serious issues. That's not even the worst of it though. Right under the Rig Racers 2 section on this portfolio, there's a game called Battle Blades. It never released, but it says, gameplay, primarily a multiplayer game. The players must do battle using battle blades similar to the best-selling toy range, the Beyblades. Why this will sell? Riding on the success of the Beyblades toy and full-price PlayStation title, this game offers infinitely greater gameplay at a budget price. The designs, colors, and features are all accessible and appealing to the target audience. Can you even be mad at this point? These guys are straight up about it. They do not care. They were telling you publicly on their website, yeah, we're coattailing these guys, riding on their success, with the obvious lies tossed in there, of course, like saying infinitely greater gameplay. Judging on the 20 or so games I played, I don't think that statement is true. If it wasn't obvious enough, none of these were designed for players' enjoyment. They were only spawned into the world to make easy money by selling low-effort slop at a cheap price. And just like Phoenix Games and Blast Entertainment, it must have worked. Otherwise, so many of these titles wouldn't exist. Unfortunately, loads of young sailors out there wasted their time with these games. I'm glad I never did. With all that said, make sure to leave your thoughts about these games in the comments. Did they appear to be worth every second of playtime to you? Does Monster Trucks Arenas compete with titles like Gran Turismo and Ridge Racer? Does it blow them out of the water? Is DDU on top? Let me know. And big ups to our channel members. If you want to join them and support the channel further, hit the join button right next to the subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, take very good care of yourselves, and I hope to see you all again in the next video.
Sorry, my mom was talking on the microphone.
Welcome to GameSack. The Sega Channel for the Genesis was way ahead of its time. It's kind of like a proto version of Xbox Game Pass, if you will. Now, the trials for the Sega Channel started in June of 1994, and it officially launched in Pittsburgh, of all places, in December of that same year. Quickly moved across the U.S. to other cities. And it wasn't limited to the United States, believe it or not. In fact, it was available in limited capacities around the world. And despite Denver being the place that broadcast the Sega Channel to the satellites, it was never offered here, so I was never able to experience it in its own time. Anyway, let's take a closer look at the channel. In order to use the Sega Channel, you need this special adapter which plugs into the cartridge slot. This was often bundled with a subscription to the Sega Channel, which was usually around $13 extra a month on top of your pre-existing cable charges, as well as a one-time $25 activation fee. This adapter here has a part attached to the back of it which kindly requests that it not be removed. And it also says hand tighten only for when you attach the coaxial cable to it. Like seemingly everything for the Genesis, it requires its very own power supply. It wants 15 volts, and it won't work without this at all. There's a menu button to access the menu, which we'll get to shortly. You can use this adapter with a Model 1 Genesis as it is, or with an adapter plate for the Model 2. This is the 32X adapter plate, and it works, but the Sega Channel one looked a bit different. You didn't absolutely need it though. Assuming everything is hooked up and powered correctly, you'll get the Sega Channel intro and landing screen, and it'll stay on this while it tries to connect to the service. If it can't find the service, you'll get this message. Obviously, the Sega Channel no longer exists, but there are ROMs out there that do a great job of giving you access to the menu and a taste of the experience. Here in the menu, you have several different categories of games to choose from, like Sports Arena for sports games, Wings and Wheels for flying and racing games, the Family Room for what Sega considered family-oriented games, I guess, the Arcade for, well, arcade-style games, Swords and Spells for what I feel should be RPG games, but Revenge of Shinobi is in here. Then again, this ROM was constructed by fans and shouldn't necessarily be taken as gospel for what was available on the Sega Channel. The Think Tank is for puzzle games, and Classics for what Sega considered classics. There was a game guide section that would let you load some game instructions, as well as a news link section which told you what was coming to the Sega Channel soon. There was also a popular test drives area where you could play upcoming or newly released games. These were usually restricted with a time limit of 20 minutes for action games and 30 minutes for slower games like an RPG. You could play them over and over, but of course you'd have to start from the beginning each time. There was even an express game section which isn't in this menu. That would let you play games that were in the test drive section the previous month without the time limit for 48 hours, but it'll cost you $3 a pop. The game library changed out every month, and eventually they began rotating it every 2 weeks. Once you pick a game, you have to wait until the game was broadcast. It wasn't on demand like the internet is today. Instead, the games were broadcast in a rotating loop. You would often have to wait up to a minute or more before the game you selected was broadcast, and then, well, down it comes. This wasn't foolproof, as the download could get errors or fail, prompting the adapter to crash. Once it did successfully download, you could play the game as normal. It would basically perform like you had the cartridge inserted into the machine. As long as it wasn't a timed game, you could play it as much as you wanted. However, once you powered the Genesis off, the game would erase. So it wasn't really good trying to make progress in games that use a save feature. However, if you rented games a lot, the Sega Channel might have been a good deal if you already had cable anyway. The Sega Channel is extremely difficult to document as the games often changed and there's no official list of games anywhere. What is known, however, is that there were a lot of different games to play on the service over its lifetime. So let's take a look at some of the games that were available to play but didn't get physical releases here in the United States. That's right, the Sega Channel was the only way to play these games unless you imported them back then. Up first is Alien Soldier from Treasure. I always found it amazing that this one never got a physical release here in North America. You play as some sort of anthropomorphic bird guy thing. The story is incredibly bizarre, so I'm not even going to try to follow what's going on here. You can equip up to 4 different weapons and cycle through them at any time. But be careful as they don't have unlimited power, or force as the game calls it, and they need time to recharge. That's why you switch to another one when the current one gets low. The game is mostly a boss rush, with very little in the way of normal stage progression like you'd find in most action platformers. Mainly in these parts, you shoot down minor enemies, getting a bit of life back, and you also get the opportunity to power up your weapons. Doing that will give them a lot more force, which makes them far more effective against the bosses. Of course, each area has many different bosses, each designated to its own stage. There are 25 stages in all, which means 25 major boss fights. It's overwhelming at first, and it does take a small amount of time to adjust to the gameplay. It's very easy to take damage, but fortunately you have a dash move which starts you to the other side of the screen. The game calls this teleporting for some reason. Anyway, you're invincible while doing this, and mastering this technique is absolutely mandatory. When your life is full, you can do a power dash, which can really damage the bosses. The gameplay is honestly very technical, and it's not one that you can just pick up and play. You can also lose your muscle memory for the game if you haven't played it for a while, requiring you to relearn some things. The graphics are fantastic, just as you'd expect from Treasure, with lots of cool visual treats all over the place throughout the entire game. Multi-jointed, segmented bosses are everywhere. There's even a tribute to the Gunstar Heroes boss 7 Force with a transforming boss who has many different forms. Hell, it even uses the music from Gunstar Heroes here. Speaking of the music and the sound are both great as well and help keep the energy level high. This game is pure sweaty palms excitement from beginning to end, if you can make it to the end. Now you may look at Alien Soldier and think, wow, the Sega Channel has a ton of amazing, unobtainable titles. Well, they may be unobtainable to most, but they're not all amazing. Check it out. Here's Battle Frenzy, also known as Bloodshot. It's from Domark. This one is a first-person shooter. At the time, Wolfenstein 3D was all the rage, and Doom was pretty new and was also super popular. So Domark tried giving us this. It's impressive for its time and the hardware. In fact, I could have included it in the last episode about 3D games in the 16-bit era, but I didn't want to talk about this particular game twice in a row. I mean, it's not that good. Still, everything here uses software scaling and it can get pretty choppy. You have different weapons you can collect as you blast your enemies apart. Of course, you'll need to find keys to open doors, as was the norm for the early first-person shooter games. There's not much going on here with the audio, sadly. This is a good game to have on the Sega Channel. It's one that you'd probably want to try out, especially at the time, but it's not really something you'd actually want to buy. Next up is Body Count from Probe and Sega. I just talked about this one a few episodes ago, you know, the one with Dave and all of the Super Scope and Menacer games, so I'm not going to focus on this one very much here. Anyway, it was only released physically in Europe. You can play it with a controller, a mouse, or the Sega Menacer. It's basically an arcadey light gun shooter where you need to shoot the enemies as the stages scroll on by. There are some power-ups you can get, as well as the usual stuff like life and ammo refills. Speaking of ammo, it's not unlimited, but it does drain quite slowly. I mean, it might as well be unlimited. You also have a special powerful shot you can fire, but that, of course, is quite limited. The grenade icon tells you how many you have left. As I said when I talked about this one before, the enemies are bullet sponges. However, the visuals are great and the audio isn't bad. I've read that light gun games have issues functioning properly with the Sega Channel. I don't really understand how that could be, as the games run like you're playing them from a cartridge once it's downloaded, but again, I read it, so I suppose it's worth mentioning. If any of you go back in time and play this on the Sega Channel with your Menacer, well, consider yourself warned. It's possible that a translated version of Dino Brothers 2 is available to play on the Sega Channel at some point. This is a real-time strategy game from CRI that can kinda be figured out if you mess with it long enough. Basically, there's a master egg and you can tell it to lay dinosaur eggs. Eventually you can tell it what kind of dinosaur eggs you'd like it to pop out. The dinos eventually hatch and wander around. As you can imagine, the different dinosaurs have their own strengths and weaknesses. Elsewhere in the stage, there are bad guys that are busy doing their own thing. When your dinos and the bad guys meet, they'll automatically fight. Once you defeat all of the bad guys, the stage is over and you move on to the next. I don't fully understand it yet, as this is my first time messing with this one, but honestly, it's not bad, and it probably would be fun to play in English. The graphics are pleasant, and the music is very lively. I don't know how well a physical version would have sold had it been released, but it would have been nice to have anyway. Part of me is skeptical that they actually translated this one to play on the Sega Channel, because that just seems like a lot of effort for this game. But hey, weirder things have definitely happened in the world of video games. So let me ask you guys who actually had the Sega Channel this. Do any of you remember actually playing this one on the Sega Channel back in its time? Please, please, please comment if you do, especially if you're in the US. I hope that this one gets a fan translation someday. The first Dino Brothers game is partially translated already. Here's Golden Axe 3 from Sega themselves. This one is often considered the black sheep of the family, at least of the Genesis games, but it's better than you might have been led to believe. You can choose from 4 characters, but not the fan favorite dwarf, because of course not. The game kind of gives a bad first impression. The first level graphics aren't super appealing, and the characters and enemies all look rather flat and dull. What's more is that the animation, well, it kinda sucks. The characters and the enemies have absolutely none of the polish of the first game. Still, the game actually does play pretty well. Taking a nod from the arcade-exclusive Golden Axe The Revenge of Death Adder, which preceded this game by a year, you can choose your route in certain parts of the game. This adds to the overall replayability. While there are many different stages, they don't all have their own unique boss fights. I like how when you do die, it shows you the path that you took on the map. And you did. I love it. Your moves are pretty standard for the series, and each character has their own set of attacks. There are a lot of enemies which will outright block your attacks, which can be a tad annoying. Of course, you have magic that you can use just like the previous games. Each character has 3 levels of their own magic. You collect vials, and once that segment is red, that's the level of magic that you'll use if you press the A button. Any remaining vials can be used as your weakest attack, so you don't necessarily use all of the vials each time you use magic, which is cool. The game is rather easy, even with the enemies that constantly block you, especially if you use this big tough guy in all of his continues. Visually, the game is a mixed bag. I've already mentioned the player characters and the enemies. The backgrounds do have their moments though. There's almost always some parallax scrolling going on, which definitely helps things out. The first game didn't have any parallax scrolling, at least not on the Genesis. The colors tend to be a bit dull, however. Also, the magic effects are not as impressive as the first game. The music is well composed with some great melodies, though the sound driver could be more punchy. The sound effects and the samples themselves are rather poor. This is only an 8 meg game, and honestly it could have used twice that. Given the time that this was released, that still would have been a low amount of memory. Still, this one is worth trying out, and it even features 2-player simultaneous play if you actually have any friends, but I'm pretty sure that you don't. This game was exclusive to the Sega Channel, and it was programmed by David Crane himself. You know, he made Pitfall, Ghostbusters, and, well, lots of other games. This one was thought to be lost forever until David Crane gave a cartridge to the National Video Game Museum in Frisco, Texas. And that's where I got this ugly video from. Sadly, they haven't dumped it, so no ROM is currently available. Then again, it is solitaire. Back in the mid-90s, there was one title that I really wanted to play, and I knew it was a Sega Channel exclusive at the time. Of course, I didn't have the Sega Channel, and I couldn't get the Sega Channel, so I kept waiting for them to announce a cartridge version, but they never did for my hometown of the United States, yeah. Well, what game is it? Why, this next one, of course. Mega Man: The Wily Wars from Capcom was a desirable title at the time, which you could only play on the Sega Channel if you were a United Statesian. I say United Statesian because I've had people from South America lose their absolute mind when I say American. Anyway, us Americans with the Sega Channel could try out the first 3 NES games all gussied up for the Genesis. You can choose to play Mega Man 1, which started it all with its quirkiness, Mega Man 2, which improves things immensely and was responsible for the series becoming well known, and Mega Man 3, which isn't bad either. Gameplay-wise, everything is here. However, the controls feel a bit slow and or laggy compared to the NES games. When you start to press a direction, you tiptoe forward before taking off running. This happens every time and it's very weird until you get used to it. The NES games do this too, but it's much more pronounced here. I guess it makes it easier to position yourself on intricate ledges, but it also makes the game feel much slower to respawn when you need it to respawn. Next, you can't fire your weapons as fast as the original games. These games don't have a difficulty select, unlike the NES version of Mega Man 2, which had defaulted to the easy mode. As a result, things tend to take a lot more hits. Some of the bosses in parts 1 and 3 take more hits here as well. Not being able to shoot as fast here doesn't exactly help. Weirdly though, this section in Mega Man 1 feels much slower than the NES version, and as a result, it's a ton easier. You needed to have very quick reflexes in the original game, but not so much here. This game also features tons of slowdown when barely anything is on screen. The NES games barely had any slowdown that I remember. Things like the pause-unpause glitch in Mega Man 1 have been removed. The good news though is now you have 3 different save slots, each of which saves your progress in all 3 games. No more silly passwords here. However, game saves aren't going to help you if you're playing on the Sega Channel. Once you've cleared all 3 Mega Man games, the Wily Tower opens up. This is an all-new section where you can choose your weapons and items from any of the 3 games. The stages reuse the enemies and traps, but it looks completely different. It's cool that they added this instead of just having it be a straight-up compilation. I wonder if anyone ever got to this area on the Sega Channel without game saves. The graphics, of course, have been redone for the Genesis. They all look quite good, with tons of color everywhere. Parallax scrolling is often visible in most of the stages as well. The sound and music also got an upgrade, if you can call it that. The music certainly isn't bad, but the sound driver that they used is pretty weak. It's also completely in mono. The Genesis can do far better audio than this. The sound effects similarly sound a little sad. As a result, I think I prefer the NES version of the music as it's just more energetic. This is a great game for the Sega Channel, but honestly, with the massive slowdown, laggy control, slightly weak music and all that, it kind of makes the Genesis look a little bit weak next to the NES. While this did get a release in Japan and Europe, us Americans can finally play this on the Genesis Mini, and there's also a physical release that was put out not too long ago by Retrobit. And here's Mr. Nuts from Ocean. This mascot platformer was only released in Europe and Australia. You play as a squirrel trying to collect nuts and make his way to the end of every level. Everyone and everything is out to get you. It's a well-known fact that squirrels have no friends, only enemies. You can bounce on most enemies to defeat them. If you have any nuts in your squirrel inventory, you can throw nuts at the enemies and they die. You can also collect coins because why the hell not, you're a squirrel. Each area has 5 levels to go through. What's nice is that each level doesn't look identical to the last, just with a different layout. Instead, it actually makes it feel like you're making some progress. The 5th area is a fearsome boss fight. I like this stage showing the squirrel in his natural Arctic habitat with Eskimos trying to skewer him. Gotta admit, he does look tasty. None of the levels have any checkpoints and most aren't very large, but a few of them will definitely have you wishing for some checkpoints. The controls are momentum based, meaning that when you jump from platform to platform, you have the urge to press backwards before you land on them to make sure you don't slide off or float past. It's often very easy to get hit, so it can be wise to take it kind of slow. The graphics are excellent. It makes you wonder why so many other Genesis games can't be this colorful. The sound and music is just kind of there. It's not offensive or noteworthy at all. As a game, it's decent, but it doesn't live up to the many other better action platformers available on the console. Still, this one would be a good one to spend an afternoon on, so make sure your cable TV is hooked into your Genesis and give it a download today.
Okay, see ya.
Oh god, here's Nightmare Circus from Funcom. This is a highly unfinished game with some of the worst controls you'll ever experience. The game provides no direction of what it wants you to do. I'll oftentimes die without having any clue why. There's not much here that can be called good. Actually, there isn't anything here that's good. Supposedly, this actually got a physical release in Brazil. I guess that's not surprising since Tectoy has very low standards, if any standards at all. Don't waste your time downloading this trash onto your Sega channel. Next up is Power Drive from US Gold and Rage Software. Ah yes, US Gold, known throughout the world for their excessive quality. Notice I didn't say good quality. This one is a top-down racing game, rally style. It's rather difficult for games like this to actually be good, and when they are, they're usually on the Neo Geo. This one is no exception, as it's a mediocre game at best. At first, it's not bad though. You race around by yourself, concerned only with beating the clock. Other races are lap-based and have you racing an opponent. In these, you need to complete 4 laps. You can beat the opponent if you're good, but I've seen you play video games and you are not. The good news though is that you don't have to beat the opponent, just the clock. There are objects on the course to help you out. One is a little clock which will stop you from accruing time for about 5 seconds. Another is a nitro boost which gives you flaming wheels and a burst of speed for a few seconds. The last icon is a stack of money which will be added to whatever you earn simply by finishing the race successfully. Your opponent can't collect these items, they're only for you. Between races, you use the money to repair damage to your car. But there's never a shop to buy better parts, at least not that I've seen anywhere. Don't worry about running out of money though, as that is incredibly unlikely. In fact, this game is immensely easy until you get up to this stage. Here, it wants you to do tricks like drifting in a circle and you need to do them all within the time limit. This kind of stuff really brings the game down. The modern Dirt series also suffers from this problem with this dumb Gymkhana events. I don't like doing this crap, so that's when I reset the game and tried using some passwords. And wouldn't you know it, they don't even work. The graphics are okay. Nothing stands out much except for the use of the highlight mode when you have headlights on. The music is also okay, but there are no sound effects at all. This really makes you feel detached from the game. You can change it to music or sound effects in the options, but they seriously couldn't figure out how to have both playing at the same time. This isn't an early PC like the Amiga, which only had 4 channels, guys. Yeah, I think I'm done playing this title, and I can understand why it was limited to the Sega channel. Then there was even a possibly translated version of Pulseman from Game Freak on the Sega channel. This is an action platformer where you play as an electrified dude who can go into TVs, I guess. He looks like he's a boss that escaped from a Mega Man game. You jump, punch, and the third button is called your Voltecker. Basically, it does nothing on its own. But if you run back and forth and build up a tiny bit of speed, you get charged with electricity. While charged, if you press the punch button, you'll fire off a projectile attack once. Or if you press the A button, you bounce around the screen diagonally until you press A again to stop it. You'll have to use this a lot to get around certain parts of the many, many stages in this game. Lastly, there are electric lines that you can ride just by pressing the A button, and you don't need to charge yourself up first. Beware of the water because it makes it so you can't use your Voltecker at all because water and electricity don't mix. These water stages are all a huge pain in the ass, by the way. I just thought you'd like to know. Pulseman runs at a few different speeds and it takes a while to get used to. It feels a bit choppy, and I never felt confident that Pulseman would go where I wanted him to or behave. The Voltecker can be a bit awkward to use sometimes. You can take 3 hits and then you die, so you really need to be extra careful. The graphics are interesting. They start out looking very nice and well drawn. But there are a lot of stages here that are absolute eyesores, like some of the worst visuals I've ever seen. Yikes, my eyeballs. The casino level looks like an unstructured, flashing mess. This game also makes very liberal use of dithering, and it looks awful in RGB, like I'm playing here. The only way you can truly enjoy the visuals here is via composite video on a really bad consumer CRT that doesn't cost very much. That'll make it more blurry like this, so you can't really see the dithering. If you have a decent CRT, you're still going to be able to make out the dithering though, even with composite. On my Genesis, you get massive rainbow bars like these in composite, so there's really no winning with this game for me. The music is mostly pretty good. There's a lot of voice here, but it sounds a bit scratchy. Still, if you can adapt to the controls, you'll find a lot of gameplay here if you choose to download it on the Sega channel. Hopefully, you were able to beat it before they took it down. This game eventually came out on the Wii Virtual Console. And there you go, the Sega channel. Now, like I said earlier, this service and the games that were available for it are fairly difficult to document these days. These are some of the titles that we can be pretty sure were available on the Sega channel at some point. Sometimes games that were released on cartridge had special Sega channel versions, and those currently have no known ROM leaks. Of course, there may be a few titles on this list that are in error, or there may be others that are missing that should be listed here. Regardless, during its time there were a ton